Good day to you all, our friends in the School of Research. Today is another day that we are going to discuss uh, writing research objectives precisely with practical examples. And I have with me again Dr. Godwin Asemota, who will be uh, sharing with us and deliberating on the topic. Thank you. Welcome to Dr. Kemi Asemota Academic Research Empowerment Forum. Today, like I've said, we are looking at writing research objectives precisely with practical examples. Examples shall be explained here in our discussion. So follow us, and you will learn a lot, and you will add more value to your research endeavors or your academic research. When we talk about research objectives, we are looking at what we're about to investigate, what we want to examine, what we want to explore, what we want to study, and having the right research objectives are very key. This is these are objectives you have to understand right from the start of your research. Okay, so let's move on. The next slide talks about. Look, we have shown you on the slide any researcher who wants to conduct a scientific journey or to start a scientific endeavor without research objectives is likened to a journey without a destination in mind. That person lives is, for example, we can look at ourselves. Anytime we leave our homes, we have the end in mind. Where am I going? What am I going there to do? And who am I going to meet? What are we going to discuss? And what am I going to achieve? It's the same thing with research objectives. When anyone embarks on a journey without a destination in mind, that means that person is going out aimlessly without any focus. So you can see the images shown on this slide. If you are targeting something and your face is veiled, how will you see where you are going? You cannot achieve. There will be wasted efforts, wasted resources, wasted time, sweating without achieving any purpose. And we don't want to avoid. We don't want to engage in any endeavor that will not attain or that will not allow us to achieve purpose. So it's very important because your research objectives are very key. When you embark on a journey, you must have the end in mind. And that's why that is the focus of our discussion today. There are three key words in on the topic of today. You said writing research objectives precisely with practical examples. What is research? That's one of the key words. The second key word is what are the objectives? And the third key word is what are the research objectives? When we talk about research, research is an investigation to solve a nagging problem. It's an exploration. It's a probe. It's a study. It's an examination you want to carry out to ensure why are these issues like this, and what can you do to solve the problems that you have seen or you had in mind at the beginning of the research. Okay, so it's an investigation to solve nagging societal problems in several ways. There are no one way to solve problems. There are many ways, but when you do scientific research, experimental, you go out to the field to gather data. It is a process of conducting research. And what are the research objectives? Objectives are those specific issues within the scope of the stated purpose that the researcher wants to focus on and examine in the study. The objectives are very important. They must be specific, measurable, achievable, and that the researcher aims to accomplish within a specified time frame. Okay. And when we talk about specific, it means it must be particular, restricted to a particular end. It must be intended for a particular thing. It must be clear-cut, peculiar. When we talk about it must be measurable, it means it must be quantifiable, numerable, or discrete. When we talk about achievable, it must be visible. Feasible in the sense that it must be attainable, practical, viable, possible, doable, and workable. And if we talk about realistic, it must be practical, it must be real, and time bound, on time, confinable, targeted. Okay. When we talk about being precise, it must be, we are talking about accuracy, clear cut issue, correct, definite, exact, specific, and strict. So these are keywords, although I didn't add precise there, but I'm just adding it by now that we are just presenting. So these are the three keywords. Then we add precise. Precise means to be correct, to be clear cut, not just writing research objectives anyhow. It must be accurate, it must be exact, and definite. Maybe Dr. Godwin would like to add one or two things to this discussion at this point in time. Thank you, Dr. Godwin, please.
Thank you, Dr. Olukemi. Actually, when it comes to objective, it means that you are not biased, you are not subjective. You are saying things that is the way they are to anybody of any size, of any shape, of any color. So it must be precise, it must be clear, it must be dispassionate, it must be fair, impartial. It must present the same thing to everybody that looks at it. It must not have more than one meaning. So that's why exactness and focus and being targeted are important, are imperative in writing research objectives. Being precise means you are correct, you are clear, you are unbiased, you are not involved, you are detached from whatever research you are doing so that you can see it without filter, perceptual filters, because those are things that confound the research and make it unworkable, make it to want to satisfy a parochial end. So that's why objectives and research objectives are specially crafted to remove any bias of any kind. And that is why when you look at the word objective, it's like you are doing an examination. See, it's objective. How many? Is it um, one what do I call it? Is it just one answer you're going to get? No, there are several answers or possible answers. By looking at it and looking at the context in which that question was framed, you now get the best. Sometimes you have more than one answer in an objective question. So in most cases, it may have more than one solution. So that's why when you are talking about objective, it can come from anyhow different perspectives, and it must have to be correct. When you now use or, it means more than one. If you now use and, you are now saying the two of them must agree. So those words you use are what makes the word to be specific, to be accurate, to be precise, to be focused and targeted. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi.
Thank you, our listeners, our friends. So, like you have seen and heard, objectives play a key role in defining the research methodology, providing a roadmap for how you will collect and analyze the data. Research is navigated. Your research, my own research, will only be navigated by well-defined research objectives. let's move on to the next slide. I believe you are following. The importance of precisely written research objectives. Research objectives play a pivotal role in defining the research methodology. Without research objectives, you don't have an end in mind. You don't even know where you are going to end. And when the research does not have research objectives, it's unresearchable. It's so vague, it's so blank, and you will waste time. And even your supervisors will be tired of you. And then that will be the beginning of being stuck at a point. And when you are supposed to have finished the research, maybe at your master's level within 2 years, and the PhD level between 3 and 4 years, you are still there the sixth year without having a focus. That will be a waste of resources and time. So research objectives are very important, but we are looking at the importance of precisely writing the objectives, okay? And when you are able to write the objectives precisely, accurately, correctly, exactly, definitely, then it will shape your research direction. Like we said at the opening section of this presentation, that you could see the image presented there. Somebody was trying to throw a dart without seeing where he's throwing the dart, because the person has a veil covering his face. How will he know where he's throwing the dart? It's the same thing. But when you have precisely written research objectives that have been written down, looked at, and you can see that it is even indicating the independent variables and the dependent variables, it will shape your research direction, and it will define the scope and the outcomes at the end of the day, the output. The output here is talking about the dependent variables, and the input is the independent variable. What are the factors that directing or influencing or impacting whatever you are measuring, okay? So, and it will help you to determine the literature search and review that will be undertaken and relevant to the problem under investigation. Because when you go online to read journal articles through Google search or advanced Google search, it will sharpen and help you to navigate the literature review you are going to engage in. You are not just going to be reviewing literature that does not have any bearing with what you are looking at. Is very important. And then it will help you to determine the research design and methodology for data gathering, collation, analysis, interpretation, conclusion, and recommendations. It will help you to determine the cost implications, the time scale, and the nature of the study. Is it cross-sectional or longitudinal? But I believe as students, postgraduate students, it is always a cross-sectional survey that we conduct, because the time is not there forever with us. We still have to complete our research within the scope and the time frame that has been given to. Because if your course is a 2-year course or a 3-year or 4 years, then that means you must work within that framework of the time that has been allocated. So when you have your research objectives precisely documented and understood, it will help you to make sure that you are not wasting time, you are not wasting resources, and you are not wasting your energy. And it helps you to, your research objectives will help you to locate where the data will be gathered and the subjects concerned. Before I proceed, I would like Dr. Godwin to talk more on a few things there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olukemi. What you just said is paramount. If the objectives are not properly written, are not clearly defined, are not well documented, then the research methodology will become very vague and bogus. And with that, one is unable to proceed, because methodology is important. It's step by step, and one leads to another, and it is process of work in discovery, and you don't get the picture at the beginning. As you proceed in the journey, you now get other things that are unfolding, That's why, with clearly defined research objectives, precisely written, clearly mapped out, then your methodology will follow that pattern. You are able to see, you are able to determine and know and realize which are the best methods, what are the likely outcomes, what are the things, what are the difficulties the researchers are going to face, how will they be able to overcome those obstacles, those barriers, those limitations. That's why when you are writing research objectives, if they're not perfectly written, you will not know where there are pitfalls, you will not see the holes, you will not be able to understand what is important, vital to the research, or what is not. So that's why this is important, that you locate and gather information that is relevant, that are helping you to unravel the problem at hand. So why consider that word gather? You are gathering, you are obtaining by consent, by being congenial with people, not being rude. When you collect, it's by force. So you don't get information by force. If people give you because they are afraid of you, if you are the boss, you will not get the accurate information. They will give you things, okay, just take and let me rest. They will not tell you what you are looking for. They will give you things that will distract you. So that's why you must use that word gather, obtain, to seek is not collect. Collect is by force. You are not forcing anybody. Nobody is your servant in research. You plead, you appeal to people. Thank you very much, Dr. Olukemi.
Thank you to Dr. Godwin. You see, research objectives provide direction, like I said, ensuring the research stays focused on a specific topic or problem. They help to prevent the research from becoming too broad or bogus, and they ensure that the study remain relevant and meaningful. You see, and also when it guides the research objectives guide the researcher in research design and methodology. These objectives ensure that your study is designed in a way that will answer the research questions and achieve the research objectives. Okay, like we have said, it helps to manage your cost and allocate resources in terms of time, financial, human. We talk about research assistants. How many do you need to help you to administer your questionnaire on the field? So, with well-defined objectives, it will help you to manage resources and manage resources well. Let Dr. Godwin come in here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Olukemi. It is this very written research objectives that will help you determine the internal consistency, the reliability of the investigation. How valid are they? Does it have facial validity? Does it have construct validity? Does it have criterion validity? Does it have what do you call it? Statistical validity. So these are the things that are you putting the eggs in one basket? Are you not saying the house consists only of a kitchen or it consists only of a toilet? Yeah, it's skewed. So it should not be skewed. That's why I talk about objectivity. It must be unbiased estimator or whatever you are doing. Thank you, Dr. Lukem.
Yeah. And also, in addition, research objectives will enable the researchers, especially research we conduct with in a team, like when you won a grant and you have different people on board conducting the research, it will help you it will foster collaboration and ensure that everyone is working toward the same end goal. Okay, and it is easily communicated among the research team, the stakeholders, and the funding agencies, and other interested parties. Let's move on. We are still on the importance of precisely written research objectives. It will help the researcher to allocate, like we have said, determine the quality of the study through evaluation, ensure that everyone is working toward the same goal, and it will always provide a road map for the researcher and the team to collect and analyze data. And also research objectives help to determine what the researcher will achieve at the end of the study. I think at this junction we are still following, and we are given it is very clear. Yeah, let's move on. Research objectives, like we said, what are they? We have general objective. This is a very broad overall goal that the study aims to achieve. And also we have specific objectives. Specific objectives enable the researcher break the research problems into smaller researchable objectives or mini researches that, when combined, resolves the major objective of the research. Both should reflect the dependent and independent variables. What are you measuring against what? So this research objective, when you are conducting your research at master's level, postgraduate, PhD, even with your team, if it is the grant research that you have collected to solve a problem, you have asked for funding, for money in order to conduct the research, it must have objectives, both general and specific objectives. Do you have something to say here? Okay, let's move on. What are the examples of action and passive verbs? When you are crafting or writing or developing research objectives, you must use action verbs, not passive. And we can see the examples here. Precisely crafted objectives are following these principles of using action verbs to analyze, to investigate, to examine, to compare, to establish, to determine, to measure, to test. These are the verbs that are quantifiable, they are measurable, because when you say analyze, you must gather data for analysis. You must gather data for investigation. You must have data you want to examine. Who are your participants? Who are your respondents? Who are your audience? From which population of the community? And you want to determine, you want to measure, you want to test, you want to compare both private and public institutions in the service sector or in the education sector of the economy. So these are examples that you need to precisely ensure that they are crafted in such a way using the action verbs. Maybe Dr. Godwin will look at the passive verbs, and why do we consider passive verbs to be poorly crafted?
Thank you, Dr. Olukemi. Actually, when you look at the words, passive words are not measurable. Like to look. How can the eye measure anything it's looking at? The eyes may be open, but they may be blind. So if the eyes are blind and the person is looking, what will the blind person see? That's why looking does not solve any problem. That's why when you use to look, what are you looking for? What is not lost, or is it lost? To understand, how do you quantify understanding? How do you put it? How put it on a scale? So that's why to check. What are you checking? Is it just to tick, or is it an animal that bites another who's a parasite? So it becomes a problem. You see, what are you saying? To feel. What is your feeling? Feelings are not quantifiable. They are not reliable. So that's why when you look at, you are saying, I want to look at, I want to understand, I want to check, I want to feel, I want to talk about. Talking about what? Anything. That is gossip. That is not research. To find, is it lost? To see, what are you seeing? What are you not seeing
And after you have seen, that is the end of
it?
it. So how are you going to write the
Quantify, yeah,
report?
what you saw.
And it's not scientific
It's not
anyway.
scientific.
Cannot be measurable.
So they debate upon on what. So that's why all these things. That's why when you are using words like analyze, it is to break it down to the lowest terms. Break them down. You now see how each part relates to another part. Then you now bring them together. How can you synthesize them? If you break them apart, can they be brought back together? These are the things to analyze, synthesize. So that is, you are now looking at things. So are you a chemist? So if you are a chemist, you compound things. You mix one chemical with another, and now see what are you getting in return. When you mix things, what do you have? Is it a mixture or a compound? If it's a mixture, then it can be separated by physical means. But if it's a compound, then it forms a new thing entirely. You can only separate them by chemical means. So that is the difference between a mixture and a compound. So that tells you are analyzing. By analyzing, that tells you what part it is to investigate. Then it tells you that it is a maze. So you are getting it one by one, putting the pieces together, and it can be forensic. That's why when you talk about these things, it is talking about being active voice, using the active voice that are actionable, things that you can see, you can measure, put on the scale, and have standards you compare them with. So it's not just saying anything that is without boundary, boundaryless, and vague, and is unresearchable. Thank you very much, Dr. Lukem.
Yeah, thank you so much. So when we use action verbs, it denotes observable and measurable outcomes. Let's proceed. What are the practical examples? We want to look at the practical examples of precisely crafted research objectives. We look at it from different disciplines, just a few of them because we don't have the whole time to look at various disciplines in the whole world. So this must be, we have a scope, it's specific. We are looking at objectives that are specific now in the presence of this presenting this. In psychology, for example, a general objective may look at to examine the relationship between social media use and self-esteem among adolescents. What are the specific objectives that we can craft out of the general objective? The general objective looks at the comprehensive, the totality, the overall objective of what we want to achieve at the end of the day. But when you break the objective down into specifics, that gives us the specific objectives, and they may be 2, 3, 4, depending on the content of what you are looking at, the topic, and how the scope and the frame and the time frame. Okay, so we can look at one of the specific objectives under psychology as deriving that specific objective from the general objective. One of the objectives might read or might be written or crafted thus: to measure the frequency and duration of social media usage among adolescents. Another specific objective that can be crafted here is to assess levels of self-esteem using standardized psychological scales. You see, it's still these two objectives. For example, we can have 3 or 4 depending on our research, our independent variables, and the dependent variables we want to measure. Okay, so you can see that from there you see social media, which is in the general objective. You see self-esteem among adolescents. Those things have been, broken down into specific levels of the objective. So you can see. And then when we look at sociology, the investigator may be interested in to investigate the effects of rural-urban migration on family cohesion in Kenya, for example. That's the general objective under sociology. So how can we craft specific objectives from this general objective, which is encapsulating? We can look at what we have there. It says to examine the socio-economic drivers of rural or urban migration. That means what are the factors, socio-economic factors that are driving rural urban migration in Kenya. Then the second specific objective is to analyze. You see, you are analyzing, you are examining, you are measuring, you are assessing changes in family roles and relationships due to rural urban migration. Maybe Dr. Godwin would like to add to this.
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at the general objective for psychology, it says to examine. That was the statement. Then the specific just says to measure. Examining is broader. Measuring is specific, has a standard measure. And because you are measuring, there is a tolerance. There is an error associated with each measurement you make. Like now, if you want to measure using a meter rule, the standard is a meter. Then what is the smallest scale on that meter rule? Maybe it is a millimeter. Then what is the error in your measurement because of using that scale? It is half the smallest division on that scale. So you can see when you are measuring, it is accuracy. And if your measurement is different from the half of the smallest division on that meter scale, then your measurement is not reliable. It is not a precise measurement, and whatever you have done, it is wrong, and it's a waste of time and resources. So measurement is important. You talk about accuracy, that's called precision, tolerance and precision. Then to assess, what are you assessing? That means there's a standard upon which you have a benchmark to compare. So that's why when you talk about specific, must be sure you are measuring what you are supposed to measure, assessing what you are supposed to assess, and that when you compare it to the standard requirement, it meets the threshold. So that's why measurement is important, assessment is important, examining is important. So that's why the crafting is important, and it communicates the sense in which you are relating to your audience. Psychology is that investigate. The other one say examine, then analyze. So you can see each of them is talking about a frequency, a duration, rural urban shift. It is normal. What do you do to have urban rural shift? That is another question, another research topic. What can you do to change the tide? Rural urban is normal. What other thing can you do to change the drift from urban to rural to reduce the pressure in our urban cities? So these are things you talk about social relationship. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi. Can continue.
Let's proceed. We still have the practical examples of precisely crafted research objectives. Let's look at human resource management here. What is the researcher looking for, or what is it trying to investigate or assess? To assess the influence of employee engagement strategies on organizational performance in the banking sector. You see, a sector is identified, and the category of the employees, what is the engagement, is talking about the strategies of employee engagement on organizational performance. Here, it's talking about organizational performance. It's not talking about job satisfaction. So anything you are doing, you must have a scope, a focus, must be specific. So that is the general objective that this researcher wants to investigate. Let's look at the specific objectives here. It says to evaluate the relationship between employee engagement and staff retention. The second one talks about to determine the influence of leadership style on employee commitment and organizational performance. Because when you look at organizational performance, the leadership style is very vital, is very critical in this study. So the researcher will look at the leadership style in one aspect and look at the employees in the organization. What determines what? How does this affect the other? And even looking at the objective will also help you to look to determine the statistical analysis you are going to use to analyze the data you are going to collect. You see, right from the beginning, you have the idea of what type of statistics. Is it ANOVA? Is it MANOVA? Is it t-test? Is it so? From looking at the objective, it will give you an indication that you can use these statistics to analyze the data. Until now you collect the data, it will now be when you collect the data, you feed in the data with your SPSS, whatever version, but at least the latest version, that it will help you to now calculate and analyze and interpret your data. Okay, so we look at engineering. Let's Dr. Godwin say something on this, because that is his area, engineering power systems.
Thank you, Dr. Olukemi. It says to investigate the structural efficiency of recycled concrete aggregates in residential construction. That's a loaded general objective. To investigate structural efficiency of recycled concrete aggregates in residual construction by looking at the way it is crafted. Structural, you're talking about what are the components, how do they relate with each other, how are they efficiently compacted using recycled aggregates. Concrete, that means they have been used before, they are now recycled. Then in residential buildings construction, so how are you looking at it? What are you saying? Say to evaluate the cost effectiveness of using recycled materials. Okay, from the beginning it said concrete aggregate, recycled materials. In concrete, it's not only mortar you have sand, you have stones, you have granite, you have steel and other things. So that's why you talk about recycled materials, and these are called composites, and each of them have the way they relate. So this is a very serious engineering problem, and you must evaluate how is it going to be in terms of cost. You're talking about economics. It should not be too expensive. It should be effective. It should be easy to handle, and it should satisfy the required standard. Then to evaluate, to analyze the environmental implications of using sustainable materials in construction. Why that word sustainable? It is saying it is available continually and it is not expended. It is available, reusable, and can last for a long time. So this is why you must understand what it means to talk about specific objectives. With all this, then the researcher will know the extent of which he or she would go in talking about materials. How do they cohere? How did they bind? These are things that are coming in the different sub-problems that accompany this research objective. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi.
Thank you too. Still on the practical examples, now we want to look at the practical examples of poorly crafted research objectives. Like we have said earlier, to look at employee motivation, so vague and unclear. Look at is too general, no measurable outcome or specific variable. It lacks clarity about the scope or context. To understand feelings in people who use internet a lot, that's not a topic. It's non-specific language. Feelings and a lot are undefined, cannot be measured, so loose and vague. No theoretical framework or defined group, no researchable without further clarification. Okay, so check if recycled materials are okay in buildings. We are crafting this from the engineering perspective. The first one from psychology and the first one from human resource. You see, when you want to check if research, even looking at the general objective has already indicated that is not measurable. It's informal. The statements we are crafting here so vague. The wording is so vague. It's not measurable. There are no criteria or method implied to measure what we are looking at. It doesn't reflect the scientific rigor expected in engineering research. To find out stuff about people, what do you mean? This is, we are using slang, and we must have academic language we must use formal academic language that denotes that what we are looking at are measurable and observable and quantifiable, discrete, okay, and scientifically proven, because that is the process of what we are about to do. We don't allow the use of slangs and non-academic phrases. Stuff. What do you mean? It's a slang which is not accepted or acceptable in academic writing. So no clear population, no variable, nothing. So we are just looking at poorly crafted research objectives here. We look at the general and we look at the specifics. Okay. To talk about buildings with plants, there are no clear goals here. It doesn't specify what aspect of building or plants you are looking at. It does not indicate research questions or hypotheses. And the last one here on the slide says to explore how people feel when they see art, and then when they see it, what happens. It's unresearchable, too broad and very subjective. And we are talking about objectivity of your objectives in the research. You must be objective, without any sentiment. You don't attach your feelings to your research. No, you separate yourself, your emotions, your sentiment from the research you are doing. And that is it. So when you look at this, they are poorly crafted. So be aware of the objectives that are precisely, correctly crafted, and compare them with the poorly crafted. That will help you in your research to know how to really write your research objectives. Will you want to add something to this?
Yes, thank you very much. The issue of research objectives writing tells us about the language register of the researcher. A researcher must use scientific language with correct language register. It must be high. It must be of standard. It must not be vague. It must not be arrogant. And most of it comes from people who write in the what do I call it? In languages. Languages write because they want to flow. They want to express themselves freely. But scientific must look at what can you measure. We are not appealing to emotions. We are not selling emotions. We are selling science. What can be proven. So you must remove bias. You must remove yourself from the work you are doing. That is why it is objective. It must be clear to all and sundry that you are not putting yourself in the way of the work. Thank you very much, Olukemi.
Let's proceed. Thank you so much, Dr. Godwin. Reasons for poorly crafted. There are reasons behind any action, So, what are the reasons? Too broad and vague, creating confusion and lack of focus. Too narrow or specific, thereby limiting the scope of the study. Non-alignment to the research questions being explored. Ill-defined problem statement. Ill-conceived topic. When the topic is not well conceived, definitely it will affect every other thing till to the end of the research. And whatever you have done will be a waste because you have not conceived the topic well. Some people, when they go for defense, they we ask them to resubmit because from the beginning to the end, the topic is not correct. We cannot see the independent variables. There are so many. They are too broad. They are too vague. So what are you measuring? How do you measure them? What are the questionnaire that you are using to measure the variables, the indicators? Do they really measure what? And the objectives are not even indicative of the questionnaire that you are using as a tool to measure what you want to be. So these are the things that we need to take care and be cautious of, especially the reasons for poorly crafted research objectives. Okay, poor understanding of the problems regarding the research, wrong data gathering methods, wrong assumptions about the subject or participants for the research, failure to consider ethical issues in the study, failure to involve all relevant stakeholders, your supervisor, your participant, the funding agency. Because if you don't consider this, yes, you should take charge of your research, but you must carry them along. You are the person that is doing the research. You must understand the research. You must be able to persuade people and convince people that yes, your audience, that this is the research you are doing, and you should be able to carry them along. And then when research objectives are poorly crafted, let me tell you, you will not even achieve what you intend to achieve right from the beginning. Maybe Dr. Godwin would like to say a few
Thank you
things
very
here.
much. Actually, what you just said, when you talk about failure to involve relevant stakeholders, how can you do a work that is funded and your results will not solve the problem of the funders? You have done no work. You have destroyed your reputation. You are showing you are an amateur, don't know what you are doing, and you have damaged your future and the credibility of the organization you represent. So it's a lot of things. So that's why these are the core things people must take care of in any research endeavor. Must be properly done and must be seen. Even if things go wrong, it will be clear that you have done due diligence and you are satisfied all the requirements. That didn't happen first major, yes. Why did it happen? That can be a subject for another day. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi.
Yes, let's proceed. Here now, what are the guidelines for crafting smart research objectives? Okay, what are the guidelines? It must be specific. If it is general, it must be specific. And if they are specific, so what we are talking about, both specific objectives and general objective, they must be specific, measurable, achievable, researchable, realistic, relevant, and time bound. Okay, we may ask researchers or ask myself as a researcher, what exactly do I want to accomplish through this research? These are the questions that will help us to think outside the box. What impact do I want to achieve, or do I want the research to have? With a clear understanding of your research objectives, you break them down into specific and achievable objectives.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Olukemi. Actually, being specific means it is targeted, and it's not every problem you want to solve. It is that particular problem you want. That's why I say it is specific. So if it's specific, then other things will be outside it. Otherwise, you are solving a different problem. Measurable, we have said it before. It must have room for a little margin of error, which is acceptable, which is the same as the instrument you are using. I mentioned before that if you are using a meter rule, for example, then the error margin is half of the smallest division. So in your writing, you now say 5.5 centimeter. Then if you are using a micrometer screw gauge, then you are having a more accurate result compared to what you had using a meter rule. My can be 5.5 if it is a meter rule I'm using. If I'm using a vernier caliper, I can now have 5.53 centimeters. Or if I'm using a micrometer screw gauge, I can now have 5.534. So because of the instrument I'm using, I'm having more accurate reading. So the instrument you are using must agree with your error margin. So that's why if you use a very big scale, your error becomes bigger. If you are using more precise measuring instrument, your instrument determines the error. That's what I talk about. Is measurable. It must be clear. So if you now have a meter rule and you're supposed to have one space of decimal, one decimal place, then you are now having to write 2 or 3. That means what you have measured is wrong. You have used a different measurement, and everything you have doing is wrong. Achievable. That means, is it feasible? Is it viable? Do you benefit from it? That's what we talk about. Being researchable, being realistic. Is it achievable? Then the time scale, the time stamp is very, very important because it can be outdated, then it can be what you are not considering. So that's why it's very important to look at this very well. So the SMART system is needed for every well-defined, well-written research objective. Thank you, Dr. Olukemi.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Godwin. Let's proceed. We are still on guidelines to crafting smart research objectives. You start with a clear research problem. With a clear research problem, it helps you to really know how to craft your research objectives, because without clear research problem, then you cannot generate research objectives. It's impossible. So you must clearly identify the research questions as well, because from the research problem, it is research problem that we ginger you, induce you to go and carry out the literature review. So from there, after you have read different studies conducted related to what you are intend to carry out or conduct in your own research, it will help you to be focused on, okay, this is the real problem. Okay, these are the questions that you want to generate, and that will help you to even define your research objectives, the research hypothesis, and on like that. So we conduct related and relevant literature review to identify key concepts, theories, and methodology. It also the research objectives will help you to identify research aim that summarizes the overall goal of your research, and it will help you to develop smart research objectives that we have already said earlier and explained. You use action verbs that such as analyze, investigate. We have said that before and we have explained thoroughly. You can look back again and listen to the presentation on that, which is in this presentation. The research objectives should align with research questions and their hypothesis. That's very straightforward because we have already explained what it entails to craft precisely, to craft well-written research objectives. Research objectives, in conclusion, are the support structure of any successful inquiry. Any successful for your study, for your research to be successful, there are no shortcuts. Without the research objective, the study has no legs or no pillars to stand on. Allow me to use that. They enable researchers eliminate noise, which may be white or colored. What are we looking at? What are we talking about? White noise. What do we mean? White noise attracts confounding variables to the independent variables, which may bias the quality of the research. The colored noise also attracts confounding variables that will negatively affect the output, that is the dependent variables, which may bias the quality and the generalizability of the study. And also, research objectives will enable the study to be appropriate, impactful, and of quality. Therefore, researchers at whatever level, you should have clear destination in mind before you embark on your research, because that is the focus of research objectives. Oh, these are the things we want to add, and it will now help you to, the research objectives will now guide you, make your journey to be straightforward, and also be able to see what and the processes you are going to embark upon, the processes you are going to use to conduct your gather your data, to measure the data, to do the reliability and the validity. It's research itself is a process. Maybe Dr. Godwin would like to just add one or two
Thank you
things
very
as we
much.
conclude.
In conclusion, like you have just said, what is noise? Noise is discordant tunes which are not, they are variable. They are not, so they drown out the quality of what you are doing. So in most cases, people measure noise and they are not getting the real thing. So that's why when you have well-written, precisely written research objectives, it will drown out the noise. Whether it is white, which correlates with the input, or it is colored, which correlates with the output. And at the end of the day, when the noise is removed, you have a beautiful and well-crafted research objective and good quality research. Thank you, Mr. Olukemi.
Yeah, I think we have come to the end of this presentation on writing research objectives precisely with practical examples. We thank you for listening and watching more of our videos on academic research essentials. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. You have a lot to gain by improving your research with this. So if you have any issue or any challenge, that is our contact information. And we want to wish you the best in your research endeavor. Thank you.
Have a great day.